you doing, Jacqueline?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too.
Good. So, I mean, I heard most of your conversation there with Rupert, and I think there are some sort of cross streams between the work that we do, which on paper you would not think that, but you know, your environment and how that contributes to who you are, what you have to say, what you're running from, where your aspirations, you know, how they emerge on the basis of your origins. That's something I'm very interested in when it comes to those who make music, irrespective of the genre, because it can be your route out. It can be the absolute thing. I don't want to live like this anymore. I can talk about how I lived in order to live a better life and how that better life can actually have an effect on the planet, but primarily on the psychology, you know, on your psyche. Because if you move yourself as far away monetarily, creatively from something that's been distressing, say, then you're deemed to have succeeded. So I'm interested in what you feel, given your expertise, on the way in which the arts have an impact on the environment, because everything has come to a halt in terms of the festival season and so forth. You know, the income for musicians, music makers, has altered exponentially over the last few years. So touring was the thing. Touring cannot happen at the moment, but all of those tours, the stadiums, the field, it all had an environmental impact.
Yeah, that's actually, I don't know, I could answer that in a few ways. I mean, from a personal standpoint, it's like if there were suddenly birds gone or something like that, like something that was there and that it's absent. But on a, I don't know, I think about it a bit because my partner works in the events industry. And so it's affected our household quite a bit, and also the community of people that he knows. And people are trying to figure out, you know, what's the way forward? How do we bounce back? I guess I'm curious how you see the future there.
I have no sort of magic eye, third eye. You know, I'm interested, and then I'm quite scathing about some of the solutions that are put forward, but that's because I'm not directly impacted by it. So, you know, they've talked about social distancing concerts, where you're in these kind of mini platforms surrounded by, you know, scaffolding, as if COVID can't navigate scaffolding, because, you know, no one's in a pod. But the reality being that, you know, you miss the socialization of it. You miss the ability to go to a live event, to see your adored artist, to catch their eye, for them to say something, for you to possibly be picked to go on stage. You miss the whole, you know, the whole production of it, getting ready, selecting who you're going with. And so there's a real sense of kind of social bereavement in this aspect of music being taken from you. And yet at the same time, certainly in terms of Black musicality, so many different ways in which the nostalgia and the legacy of Black music has been brought to the fore, with a number of different initiatives that have taken place on Instagram and on other platforms, Spotify, as well as you know, online radio platforms, creating battles between particular artists or between particular eras. So there are ways in which you're going out but staying in. But you know, I want to think about how our kind of fields cross-pollinate, because, you know, you said something earlier, I think to Rupert, about you're quite interested in the way in which media has an impact on the way science is viewed.
Yeah.
But what were your thoughts on how media, not necessarily just, you know, in relation to COVID, because we know that Greta Thunberg has been just libeled and, you know, undermined and criticized and slurred by adults in positions of political power to undermine the reality of her statement and her concerns.
I mean, there's a few different interactions that are concerning. I guess I was thinking first about how this media environment changes the science that's being produced, because, you know, in this neoliberalized academy, people need to prove impact. And so scientists may be focusing on research questions or outputs that they know will fulfill that impact. And increasingly, that impact is not necessarily impact on science or policy. It's media impact is standing in as like an indicator of, you know, what your science did. So I'm kind of watching those dynamics and wondering to what extent studies are crafted around that as the goal, like with the tweet in mind when you're designing the study. And I don't have data on that, but I think it's interesting and concerning. And then there's, you know, the media understandings of the science and the ways it quickly becomes not just polarized, but like one single narrative, when really science is about, you know, not finding a single narrative, but looking for the questions, looking for the flaws maybe. And, you know, that's the process. So it's very different than what social media is doing.
Yeah. So it's about oversimplification. It's about homogenizing some kind of solution or argument and presuming that people just, well, they won't get it because it's complicated. So we'll just generalize and people can make their own presumptions and run with it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's what it seems to be.
And that tends to happen too with Black music. You know, if people aren't invested in it, they, you know, they'll like a little bit of Stevie, a little bit of Bob Marley. They may know, you know, at least 2 songs by Nina Simone, but their whole sort of investment with a genre and then genres that have evolved from that, they haven't been along for the trajectory. And so it's very easy to accept a media that is not specialized in its concern or its focus on its responsibility in understanding cultures and where people originate from and why they speak in the way that they do, why they are politicized in the way that they do, why they're sexist in the way that they are. It's easy just to homogenize and just say all. So all Black music is this, or all rappers are this, or all female rappers are that. And so there is a way in which those that are oversimplified end up being, they have to recurrently prove who they are to a media that doesn't listen until they do something that media approves of. And then it's like, we like you. You're a nice rapper. You're a nice reggae artist. You're different than them. And do you find that there are elements like that within science where there are some elements of the field that are not necessarily easier to digest, but they prefer to talk about the successes or the near accomplishments than the reality of the absolute devastation that is already here and is to come?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. And the tricky thing with science is that, you know, you need to do experiments and it's still important, even if the finding was negative or if inconclusive, like it's worth it to do it. It's still part of your life. So you don't want to just, you know, go looking for this finding that you know is going to blow up Twitter or whatever. But this ecosystem of media, I think, is just changing some of the practices. And so it's changing what science is, possibly.
You were quoted on YouTube. You have I know you know this because you participate in it. You were talking about one of your recent publications, and you were talking about the use of the word geoengineering and how, again, it's oversimplified or it's weaponized to be used in a particular context when people don't consider the multiple ways in which that word in itself is utilized. That, you know, are we geoengineering the planet in order to, by highlighting so many of the threats that we face, is the solution that we take control and that way we can fix it when we are front and center the problem that has caused all of these kinds of things. So if we can be entrusted, or if that business can be entrusted, they can be trusted to engineer to a solution. So the use of language is, I'm really interested in. And in the vernacular of your field, what words, what phrases, what terms have you found have become bastardized, have become, you know, overcomplicated or oversimplified, so they have no meaning, so that, and now their meanings have been, you know, galloped away with somewhere else?
Yeah, I think sustainability is just like, it's become empty of content. That's maybe the most obvious one.
And how would you define sustainability for somebody who's like, oh yeah, I'm sustainable? How would you actually clarify what that word means within your field and in your expertise?
I mean, coming to, I guess, the theme of this event, acting in a way that does no harm for future generations, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But it's become this corporate term. So if you look at kind of when people are searching for this word, they're searching for it like, you know, 9 to 5. When they're at work, it's like a work phrase now.
Yeah.
I don't know. What words or phrases have you found?
Oh my gosh, are you ready? Well, the way in which some people have actually, it took them years to acknowledge that the word existed, woke. And so now they talk about, you know, you're a woke warrior, and you know they try to undermine what this word is because it sounds juvenile, when really it's about being completely aware of of whether it's social privileges or, you know, inequalities. You're fully aware of some of the constructions that bedevil people's lives within society. And so if somebody talks about things from any perspective, musically or not, the idea that you're talking from this, you know, from a civil rights perspective, say, oh, you're just woke. Oh, you're a woke warrior. And, you know, the N word, who is allowed to say it? So when racists say it, when racists issue it, and well, of course we're allowed to say it because rappers say it, as if rappers are all Black people in all contexts. And, you know, even though words are delivered, as we know, you know, and we hear them, how they're emphasized relates to how they're spelt. So if you say the N-word with an A, there's a different context to it when utilized by people of color. Not always, sometimes they actually mean it, but you know, this idea that there's just this one rule and that who is allowed to speak, this is about, you know, rank privileges, you know, about who can utilize an epithet. You're in a situation where this is an epithet, and the idea of actually grasping it from the origins of those who used it to demonize and to belittle and to degrade. And if it's taken out of that context, you no longer have that power. And so the counter argument, which is not an argument, it's just an interjection, is that, well, I can say it now because you've been saying it. No, this is a collision course. So, you know, the way music, you know, takes this journey through language is really quite fascinating, and how it takes ownership of it, and also how it separates generations. You know, so children are teaching their parents and grandparents, don't say that. That's my generation's language. Or you have to teach them exactly how to pronounce things so they don't embarrass you.
And are there words that have kind of gone the other way from having now new meanings and becoming more powerful and useful?
I bet you they are, and I'm probably doing myself out of work by not being able to recall them immediately. But I just think that I think certainly in this climate, those 3 words together, that Black Lives Matter, they will now forever have a different collective, obviously, impact. And the idea that there's an argument to be had about whether or not Black Lives Matter, and you know, you've got all of these memes and gifs saying we're not saying that other lives don't matter, we're saying that Black Lives Matter as more, and how that can actually, how those 3 words change the temperature of a person's mood if you issue it. And what that then says about your presumptions and their presumptions of who has the right to make such a determination when we're on a planet that we're all sharing temporarily. And the way in which I think, certainly for me as a music journalist and for me as a university lecturer, that there was a presumption personally for me that musicians would be a lot more proactive, a lot more angry, because I wanted them lazily to do the work for me. They have a platform, go and say, you know, go out and just make the music, give us the anthem of the rage. And I wrote an Instagram post last week that by and large in contemporary Black music, the rage has always been there. We've been listening to Black pain. You know, when you hear Stevie Wonder's Living for the City, when you hear Nina Simone's Mississippi Goddam, when you listen to Billie Holiday talk about Strange Fruit, you're talking about racial inequalities and, you know, systemic murders covered up and that go unpunished. You're talking about lynches that were photographed. You had people around them. Those images were then put onto postcards, and those postcards were traded. And what that does societally to generations of people, those who share you know, those who are Black and those who are not, it tells you who's in power, who is not empowered. And so to have 3 words that remind you that power in itself is a construction that is systemically upheld, violently so. And then to think about the power that we hold over the planet, and how the idea that we're here for a little while, not all the time, but a little while, and we're just going to do what we want, some more than others, at any due time. Somehow I'd become entitled to thinking that musicians had to tell me exactly how they felt when they've been doing it all along. Some more than others. Some are not equipped. For some, it's just music is fun, and that's okay. But this idea that because you are Black and because of inequality that is globalized, it's, you know, it's wedded into the way in which a colonial power still has financial reach and control over former colonized territories. It's there it's everywhere. It's in national anthems. It's in the fact that carnival exists as a form of protest against and, you know, and subversion against those who enslaved you. It's everywhere. So Black music has been talking about it all along. And I think going back to one of my earlier questions to you about media, I feel that media has failed to remind people of this. And I think that tells us something about systemically who is in charge. So we're talking about things really, really chipper today, you know?
Well, one thing I've been struck by, you know, I've been teaching about environmental racism, and previously people understood racism as a hostile individual act. And now my students understand racism to be structural. Mm-hmm. And so that's changed. I mean, that's changed just like now, the meaning of the word and how they use it has changed. Yes. And I think that's inspiring.
I think you're right. I think structural, systemic, and Kimberly Crenshaw's intersectionality, those are 3 terms of reference that you hear more people using. But again, just like you mentioned with sustainability, there are some people who are like, oh yeah, I'm woke, I'm sustainable. And it's like, no. No, you don't have to use the pick and mix all at once. You don't have to put your hand in every single term of reference. But you're absolutely right. Because the labor of understanding is to actually stop in your tracks, stop yourself in your tracks, and to think, well, why do I think this? Why have I got this opinion of this area of the planet, the people who live there, the food and how they eat it, the music they listen to? Oh, it's not even in English, doesn't make any sense. Because the way they're dancing is disgusting. All of these ideas come from somewhere and they fall down a system, you know, and that system is structured to keep and retain a particular view of self. Now, globally, obviously, it's regionalized, it's ethnocentric, and obviously here it's Eurocentric, but that takes work. But how better to actually understand where you are, where you're living and how you're living, than to not. But this real resistance is to then create this kind of alternate dictionary where you undermine language and you oversimplify and you minimize expertise and you degrade artistry. And yes, again, depressing. You've got to cheer us up now. You've got to take us out of this gloom.
No, it's just, the language is just so powerful. One of my students was talking about going to a conference where they talked about settler colonialism and themselves as being settlers. And that one word changed how he thought about, you know, his place in where he lives, in the country, everything. Once you have the word, it can unlock a whole shift. So I don't know if we can think about doing that more intentionally.
Yeah. But given the fact that President Trump has called to arms his opposition to critical race theory, is there any concern about what he will do in terms of expanding that kind of control, that control to the sciences? Given that we know that he said maybe COVID could be tackled by bleach or by sunlight on a children's playground, a child's slide. Are you concerned that if there's any success and, you know, fundamental success in the banning of critical race theory studies in the United States, that's just...
I'm concerned more on the impact of K through 12 education, you know, primary school in particular, and what that looks like under a second Trump administration, particularly in districts where his base is strong. And that's actually, I mean, we shouldn't be having to teach our students about this in college because they should have already learned it, right, when they were younger. So that would be my main area, not so much in the sciences, as I think they'll stay fairly independent for various reasons, but really in our schools.
And you know, for people watching in from outside of the States, could you explain what the differences were pre-Trump for that demographic in education, what they were expected to have learned by that age versus now?
I'm not sure if I know enough about that to say authoritatively, because my experience now is like from my own childhood, right? I guess I'm about to find out. I have a kindergartner. Okay. So we'll see what she goes through. But I know that, I mean, things like how history is taught. Does your school celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, or is it Christopher Columbus Day? Like those kinds of things are going to be the narrative of the history and present of this country.
But it's structural, isn't it? That well, it's deliberate. It's not accidental. It's structural. That critical race theory was the testing ground, the taste tester for this administration's determination, because you start with race and then you creep on through other disciplines, through other, you know, minoritized, you know, examples. But even when we were thinking about whether or not universities would stay open, and which departments were going to go, race studies department, specialist race studies departments were the first to be culled in so many institutions.
Yeah, and it's so different than what the students want, because I think from them, there's never been such a demand to learn about this, possibly, at least, you know, in my corner of the world. Students are very passionate,
And there's an embarrassment that they don't know. And so it's almost like, you know, one of the things that I say on the first day is that, I mean, it sounds a bit trite, but this is the safe space, because it is, because no one wants to be laughed at about what they don't know. And because I teach music sociology, the idea that, oh, what do you mean you don't know about that jam? That jam kid. There's always one
Right.
guy or girl, it's usually a guy, who will actually say, oh, my dad did. That's lovely. But you don't penalize people for what they don't know. You penalize people for what they choose not to learn about once they have access to know. And then the way in which they actually mount a defense against their ignorance in order to try and minimize your knowledge. But you're absolutely right. I have more students wanting to learn about Black British music because they think there's only 5 Black people in the United Kingdom. And, you know, the history of its legacy worldwide, you know, the Black Atlantic, Paul Gilroy, etc. And so I think it's deeply worrisome that this happens in the United States, because America sneezes and the United Kingdom catches the cold. So the idea that, oh, that will happen there, nothing like that will happen there. Here, I think is naive. And so we keep looking to the arts, to the sciences, to be able to pull this, to utilize their expertise, to utilize their articulation to pull us out. But that's a lot of labor for people. And that's not possible because there are more people who are not scientists and there are more people who are not artists. So what do you think should be done by those who are not experts, but who benefit from your expertise? How can they help you?
I mean, I think that there's just so many kind of basic things about being critically literate in this media ecosystem and this, you know, I think the main thing that I want to do, it doesn't even have to do with science. It's just like helping students and people in the world learn how to read and interpret what's in the news and how to check claims and that kind of thing. Kind of first order.
Yeah. But that's a beautiful endeavor. And you haven't lost any of that desire, obviously.
No.
That's cool. That's imperative. It's imperative. And you know, I gave reference to the interview that you did with Verso about one of your publications, and you were talking about how the presumption that the elites will benefit from particular research practices and they'll keep the benefits of those findings for themselves to enrich themselves and so forth, and you know, to have more of a democratic way of sharing knowledge, you know, obviously through education. And we've talked about the idea that, you know, a sickle is being taken to particular disciplines. That made me think about the kind of pushback that Black music almost always gets. Why is it called Black music? Because it's music of Black origin. You don't hear it called white music. No, because ethnocentrically, all music is presumed to be white because we're in Europe. And so this idea that when you actually highlight something that is not of the elite, when you highlight expressions, experiences, when they gather a momentum that extends beyond the origins of the artist, and they become these global movements, you know, whether it's jazz, whether it's, you know, rock and roll, whether it's, you know, whether it's rap, whether it's, you know, and onward with grime and so forth. This idea that, well, we stop calling it Black music now that the mainstream have accepted it, because you're now being elitist. You're being separatist by calling it what it actually is. Do you have any kind of parallel within that, within the sciences, whereby those who actually make the work, share the work, are then expected to say, stop calling it that, even though it comes from your experiences and intelligence?
That's a great question. Maybe not exactly, but I think that, I guess I think of climate action and how it comes from people, and that's the driver. And then I see the elites responding to that and also seeking legitimacy from those youth activists or indigenous activists or, you know, the climate justice movement.
Yeah, that's a great example. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's been off topic suppressing the reaction to all of our interests.